It's time! Welcome to the FightFive Pod. This is episode 1. We are here with the 278 breakdown pay-per-view that just happened. Start off with our intros here. My name's Kilbin Andrew on all platforms. My name's Andrew. We got Aja here. What's up, Aja?
Yeah, I'm AJ MMA on all platforms, and my name's Aston.
Alright, and then we got Renaissance. What's up, Renaissance? How you doing?
Hey guys, my name is MMA Renaissance on all platforms, and my name is Mohammed.
I'm Biased. What's up, MMA Unbiased?
Yeah, I'm MMA Unbiased, also on all platforms. In real life, my name's Ethan.
And last but not least, we got UFC Guardian. What's going on, man?
I'm alright, bro. UFC Guardian. I'm an MMA/UFC content creator on TikTok. Basically just mainly TikTok, but yeah. And here we are with the first episode of the podcast.
That's right. Let's go. We're breaking down the pay-per-view, and we're just going from there, just generally flowing through what we got for MMA. And yeah, we'll just get right into it. 278. Start from the top down. We got the main event. Leon Edwards, infamous after this, knocking out Kamaru Usman less than a minute to go. Renaissance, what do you think? Leon Edwards.
Yeah, Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman, man, that was a crazy fight, man. Like, Kamaru Usman was looking so good after that first round. One of the best performances he's ever had. And Leon Edwards, like, he was getting beat up until that kick. I'm not saying that kick was a fluke. I'm saying that kick was properly executed. That was a really good kick. But I think Leon Edwards doesn't defend his belt for that long. I think the fight shows a lot of holes in Leon Edwards' game. And in my opinion, it also shows how it went, like the first fight with Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards. In the first round, Leon Edwards was able to defend first, like, few rounds. Like, Leon Edwards was able to defend most of Kamaru's takedowns. But then, like, as the fight progressed, Leon Edwards wasn't. And I think a more dangerous matchup for Leon Edwards in the future is Colby Covington, because Colby Covington has a pressure-based wrestling style. He doesn't like to hold you down. He actually just takes you down and, like, lets you get up, makes you tired, right? But talking about the fight, I think Leon Edwards is pretty good, man. The way he kind of managed distance the whole fight, the way he, like, painted, the way he's one of the best strikers pound for pound in this company right now. And that's what I think, man.
Agreed. Unbiased, what are your thoughts on the main event? What do you think about Leon Edwards and New?
Yeah, man, for me, it's not the fact that Leon Edwards won, it's just the way that he did it. Like, in the first round, Leon started off real good. He was the first man to ever take down Usman. He was able to take his back. Then he went down 3-1, and I honestly just didn't see it coming in the 5th round. Like, his coach gave him an amazing speech in the corner, but even after that, I still did not see that KO coming. The odds speak for itself. Like, Leon Edwards in the 5th round was plus 5,000, and he got it done with 46 seconds left.
One of the biggest come-from-behind wins of all time. One of them for sure. Aja, what do you think? What do you think about that main event? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I thought that first round, Leon, that's the best Leon we've ever seen. He, the first man to take Kamaru Usman down inside the octagon, and he took the back, made it look quite easy. But from then, that is probably also the best Usman we've seen, because, he was just controlling Leon against the fence. Leon's takedown defense wasn't holding up. And then, we fast forward 3 rounds, Usman's in complete control, and Edwards feints the left, sets up the kick, and no.
Yeah, it was perfect setup, headshot, dead. That's pretty much it. One of the coldest post-fight lines I've ever heard, honestly. And in my opinion, there was a lot more on the line than just the title. Like you guys were saying, first man to take him down, got knocked out cold. Like, that win streak was up there, that Silva win streak. He was on track for GOAT status, and this just derailed a lot. I think next they definitely got to set up the rematch, Wembley Stadium. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, man, you know what I think? Before the fight, Leon Edwards was one of the most underrated fighters on the planet. But after the fight, he's the most overrated fighters on the planet.
Great.
That's what I think, man.
Well, can't doubt him now. Anyways, we'll move down to the co-main event. Luke Rockhold retires after losing to Paulo Costa. What do we think? I'm biased. What are your thoughts on that?
Man, I'm going to be honest. I see a lot of people saying Luke looked really impressive, and he impressed me, but I wouldn't say he looked impressive in the fight. Like, he looked better than we thought he would, but he still didn't look great. His cardio didn't hold up. That could have been because of the altitude, like the commentators were saying.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, it was probably the weirdest fight I've ever seen. I mean, it was entertaining. Costa got the win. Rockhold retired, which is sad to see. That's all I really got to say about it.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect little breakdown of that. Guardian, what are your thoughts on that co-main event?
Well, just like MMA and Bio said, that was completely one of the weirdest fights I've ever seen. Like, both of them were slugging it out back and forth. It was crazy. Obviously, I thought Paulo Costa got the win. Obviously, Luke Rockhold had many moments in the fight, like when he showered F you and then got him right in the hurt face and rocked Paulo Costa. Yeah, it was an amazing fight. Obviously, it was very sluggish and it wasn't really the best skillful fight you could watch. But it was entertaining for the general audience, and yeah, that's my thoughts.
Okay. Renaissance, what are your thoughts on that co-main event? What do you think about Costa and Rockhold?
Man, I've been the Rockhold fan for like the last 4 years, man. Rockhold has been one of my most feared fighters, and I'm really happy to see he's getting the credit he actually deserves. The whole fight, it wasn't the most skillfully, like the delightful fight, but you see a guy who has not fought for 3 years, who has a staph infection, who is literally like was like called out for having a glass jaw by every fan, you know, and now he's literally fighting a top 6 guy, and he actually manages to make it a close fight with them. Like, okay, a lot of things that were wrong. Like Paulo Costa did a lot of things wrong, man. He could have chased the finish, but still, Luke Rockhold was gassed as shit, and he still threw a lot of that. He still threw those 360 roundhouse kicks, that left hooks he was throwing. All those punches had a lot of pop in it. And I guess, like, even if Luke Rockhold lost, he won in my heart.
Yeah, I definitely think Rockhold showed a lot of mental toughness. You know, he's been through a lot outside of the cage the last few years. Not to get too off topic, but, you know, he wanted to have a child, and that didn't work out well. Not trying to comment too much on that, but he's been through a lot, showed a lot of adversity and mental toughness regardless. Aja, what do you think about that co-main?
Yeah, so like Renaissance said, I think although he didn't win the fight, I think Rockhold came out as a winner, because before that fight, he was memed, he was just clowned by the entire MMA community for having this glass chin, and that, you know, he's past it, and he came out against a guy like Paulo Costa, who we know how good he can be, and he proved why he's in the company, and he's gone out at the top, so, you know, you got to respect it.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Moving down to the fight before that, we got Jose Aldo taking the loss to Merab. Unanimous decision. Guardian, what are your thoughts on that fight?
Well, for me, it was very difficult to watch because I'm a huge Jose Aldo fan. Obviously, Merab did what he had to do to get the win, and that was to grapple him. I don't believe he was able to get a takedown, but Jose Aldo's legendary takedown defense held up, and he showed very good, skillful defense grappling. Merab obviously got the win, good grappling, but I just feel like it just wasn't really the best fight for either of them, really, because I would have preferred if Merab was to win, maybe be a little more dominant, maybe get takedowns, but like I just feel like it was a bit of a lackluster performance from both. But obviously Merab got the win, so can't really say bad anything about it. So
yeah, I think the pressure and the pressure definitely got him the win. Well deserved. Renaissance, what are your thoughts on that fight, Aldo and Merab?
Man, I understand Jose Aldo has fans, and I love Jose Aldo. But everybody is blaming Merab for that fight. Merab was actually pushing the action. He was actually like trying to make something happen. Okay, Jose Aldo was defending those takedowns, but he was not doing nothing. He didn't do one fucking strike, man. It's stupid like how people are blaming Merab for that fight, but Merab was actually Merab was actually gaining clinch control. Merab was actually throwing strikes. I think this is not even a comparison. Merab won that fight easily, and I think And I think there was a very bad performance by Jose Aldo, because Jose Aldo knew that he had to defend takedowns, but he also knew he has to win the fight because he's better at striking, but he never tried to make it a striking battle with Merab. And he had the chance to do that whole fight because he was defending every takedown. And that's what my thoughts are.
Yeah. Unbiased, what do you think about that Aldo fight?
Yeah, I mean, like Renaissance said, we can't blame Merab for it being like not the most action-packed fight. But in my opinion, I'm kind of blaming both of them because I wasn't impressed with either of them. Like, I'm blaming Aldo and Merab. Aldo seemed a little gun-shy. Even when Merab wasn't shooting for takedowns, he was rarely counter-striking, at least from what I remember. He was rarely trying to lead the dance and strike first himself. And yes, he was able to stuff all of Merab's takedowns, but after he stuffed Merab's takedowns, they kind of just stayed in the clinch. And since Merab had him against the cage, that counted as control time for Merab. The control time added up, and overall, it was a good win for Merab.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they both, Aldo and Merab both had respect for each other. I think Aldo had respect for the takedowns and the aggression, and Merab had respect for the striking that Aldo was putting out, because he did land quite a few times on the feet, but he just didn't have enough because of those takedowns. There was so much aggression. Now, Aja, what are your thoughts on that fight? What do you think's next for Merab and stuff like that?
So I think that it was quite a lackluster performance from both of them, I think, like Guardian said, but you've got to respect the two of them. We've one of the best strikers we have in the octagon in there, but he didn't use it. He didn't use it as well as he could have. It seemed like he didn't want to use his striking as much as he could have, but that's what happens. But next for Merab, I think we've got to look at someone inside the top 5 for him. Someone inside the top 5, because we've got Jan and Sean lined up.
Yep.
So that's already Jan out of the equation, so we can't go for that.
Yeah.
And Aljamain versus TJ. So that's already another one. So I think you've got to be looking at someone maybe like Cheeto. Cheeto there, just coming off a win. Could be a good fight for him.
Yeah, it could be that, or maybe one of the losers in one of those fights you just mentioned. Now, just moving on to the next fight down the card, we have Yannan versus Lucy Pudilova. What do we think about Pudilova taking the win there? Guardian, what are your thoughts?
Well, she used the grappling very well. She took Yannan Wu down and just dominated her, really. The TKO was brutal, honestly. It was a very good performance. Obviously, Yannan Wu, I thought maybe she could have done a little bit more, maybe on the feet or something, but Lucy Pudilova showed dominance in the grappling, and that was just the main stake of the entire fight for me, so, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely was a little surprised with how aggressive she was to get that finish. Good for her. Unbiased, what are your thoughts on that fight?
Yeah, it was a fun fight while it lasted. Mm-hmm. To be honest, I'm not sure why it was on the main event over Romanov versus Tybura. I mean, it ended up being a better fight than that anyway, but just name-wise, like, a lot of people didn't know who these two girls were going into it, and I mean, now they do. Now they know Lucy Pudilova. She put on a good performance, like Guardian said. She used the grappling well. She got a vicious TKO. That's all I really got to say about it.
Yeah, Aja, what are your thoughts on that fight?
Like they've all said, she used the grappling well when she took the back mount and she was, throwing down those elbows. I think it was just a perfect performance. That's what she needed to do to win the fight, and that's what she went and did.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Renaissance, you got any thoughts on that fight or no?
Yeah, but I agree with MMA Unbiased, man. Because, I don't know why this fight wasn't the main event, but nothing more. It was just a dominating performance. Had good grappling, and that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the reason that Romanov and Tybura was not on the main card was just because the featured prelim, they need some type of name, and that kind of made sense to have that be the featured prelim. But anyways, moving down to our last fight on the main card, we had Tyson Pedro looking very impressive with a round 1 KO against Harry Hunsucker. What do we think about that, Aja? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Tyson Pedro did look he looked good. But what we also need to look at is that's Harry Hunsucker. No disrespect to him, but he's never been outside the first round before. So I don't think you can take a lot from that performance, although Pedro did look good.
Yeah, agreed. Unbiased, you got thoughts on that?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, it might be Harry Hunsucker's last fight in the UFC. You look at his record, he's now 7-6, but he was 7-2 coming into the UFC, which means that he's now 0-4. And if you look at the way he lost, every single one of them is by first round KO or first round TKO. As for Tyson Pedro, kind of like AJ said, like, he looked really impressive, but I want to see him against better competition because he was away for 3 years, and his 2 fights back were against Harry Hunsucker and I believe Ike Villanueva. So, like, we're not really getting too much out of those fights.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we definitely need Tyson Pedro to get a step up in competition moving forward. Guardian, what are your thoughts on Tyson Pedro getting the win there?
But he showed very good performance against, well, Harry Hunsucker's level. Like AJ said, no disrespect to Harry Hunsucker, but for me, I want to double down on him because I've got absolutely no idea why he's even in the UFC in the first place. Especially after losing to both Tai Tuivasa and Justin Tafa in just brutal destruction. Justin Tafa KO'd him with that head kick. Tai Tuivasa just mauled him out in the first round. It was crazy. And Tyson Pedro just easily put him away in the first round. 1 minute, 5 seconds in the first round. I do not believe Harry Hunsucker does have the skills, what it takes to be in the UFC, especially in the light heavyweight division. But all that being said, Tyson Pedro looked amazing. It was a good win, but obviously, like everyone said so far, he needs to get a better competition. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah, for sure, agreed. Renaissance, what are your thoughts on Tyson Pedro there?
Man, I think Harry Hunsucker is one of the most goofiest fighters, bro. It's either knock out someone or get knocked out. Bro, like, if you have one loss to, like, a Jared Vanderer, like, you gotta be trash, man. Like, I'm not being, like, I don't want to be disrespectful, but that you gotta be fucking trash for it if you have one loss to Jared Vanderer, man. It's like he's never been out of the fucking first round. He either finishes people in the first round or gets finished. That is the most stupidest thing. And Tyson Pedro had a good win over him, but I don't think it's a win that he should be happy. Like, he should be happy over it, but it's not something to, like, properly celebrate over. I believe he should get a proper step up in competition, and I believe that is what will show his real level.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better, honestly. All right, so now we got the main card. Signed, sealed, delivered. That's over. We're going right down to the featured prelim. Kind of touched on it a little bit. But unbiased, what are your thoughts on Tybura versus Romanov? Tybura getting the decision win.
Yeah, I mean, he won by majority decision. If I'm going to be honest, I scored the first round at 10-8 for Romanov. I believe the strikes were like 30-1 or even 30-0, something crazy like that. He controlled him the first time, but I'm not going to go act like it's a robbery because, like, even if it's a draw, it's not like that does much for Romanov. He was handed his first loss. He's got to learn from it, maybe work on the cardio a bit. He looked a bit gassed in the third round. I think the announcers said when he went into the third round that that's the furthest he's ever gone in his career. It's a good win for Tybura. He was able to shut down. I don't know if you want to say Romanov had a hype train, but there were a lot of people who were pretty high off of Romanov, and he was able to shut that narrative down. He was a big underdog. He was able to get the win, so good for him.
Yeah, definitely. Couldn't have said it better there. What are your thoughts on Romanov getting the win there, on Guardian?
Well, first of all, coming into this fight, I thought... Yeah. Well, coming into this fight originally, I thought Marcin Tybura was a very good underdog in this fight because he shows like epic. He has very good comebacks and he's just very durable. And he can come back. And he had a fairly close fight with Volkov, and his experience shows. And Alexander Romanov, obviously, he was undefeated coming into this, smashing pretty much everyone apart from Espino. But yeah, I thought you could give it a draw, like unbiased said, but it doesn't really do too much to Romanov realistically. Obviously, Marcin Tybura was able to completely destroy him in that third round. But that first round, I believe, was a 10-8, and I think it's absolutely absurd that the only one judge gave that first round a 10-8. I feel like that's a clear as day 10-8 as you can get. Marcin Tybura didn't really land shit in that first round, and Alexander Romanov just mauled him, took him down, slammed him, and he was landing massive shots, and that fight could have been over in multiple occasions. Like, the referee was asking Tybura, fight back, you know. But yeah, it wasn't really the fight I was really, you know, expecting, but it was a good win from Tybura. But yeah, it's a shame to see Alexander Romanov lose, because he was a good prospect on the way up.
Yeah, I still have faith in him. You know, I agree with the 10-8. I think the judges need to give those out more often. What do you think about the scoring renaissance there?
Man, I was pretty high on Alexander Romanov, right? I thought he has potential to be a champion. He still has potential to be a champion, but getting that undefeated status taken away from him, and I know that mattered a lot to him, and I don't know if he will be able to come back. But the scoring on that is like, I hate. It's just like UFC Guardian said. It's like, I fucking hate why a lot of judges like are not willing to give 10-8 rounds that easily. That was a clear as day 10-8 round. Like, you got fucking Alexander Romanov dominating the first round, right? Throwing the ground strikes, like all that combined is properly 10-8. And I just don't know why like a lot of these judges are too afraid to actually score domination.
Agreed.
That's what
AJ, what do you think about Romanov taking the L there? What are your thoughts on the score there, scorecards?
Yeah, so I agree with everyone else. That was 100% a 10-8 round to begin. But, you know, like Unbiased said, he said Romanov looked gassed coming into the third round. And yeah, maybe he was just gassed. But a lot of people was forgetting as well that this fight was at a very high altitude. And we saw it affect other fights across the whole of the night, and maybe that's where he was struggling, or maybe he just doesn't have a good gas tank. But I mean, I'm sure we'll see in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the altitude was definitely a factor for multiple fighters throughout the card. Even going up to the main event, you know, Leon kind of had some troubles with his cardio, even though, you know, he was getting wrestled a lot by Usman. But either way, altitude definitely a factor on that one. Moving down the card, I'm just going to quickly go through the last couple ones. We got Jared Gordon getting the unanimous decision win over Leonardo Santos. Luis Saldana, I kind of want to talk on this fight a little bit. Luis Saldana and Sean Woodson getting a draw. This was a weird fight. What do you guys think? Renaissance, what was your thought on this fight?
Man, I actually didn't watch this fight, so...
Oh, alright. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
Unbiased, did you watch this fight? What were your thoughts on that
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, what do you think about that weird fight?
That was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen from Luis Saldana. Like, come on, man. There's no way he didn't learn from Petr Yan. First, he knocks him down, and he taunts him instead of going for the finish. Then on the second knockdown, he knees him in the head while Sean Woodson is down, and for like 30 seconds or something, he thought he won. He was up on the cage and complaining after. Like, no, you committed a foul, and you costed yourself the fight. His coaches have to be really fucking mad at him after that. Like, that was one of the dumbest decisions that I've ever seen.
Yeah, the way that whole fight went was just super weird, you know? You got Woodson getting knocked down not once but twice, and then, like you said, the knee comes in to the grounded opponent, and then he lands it, and then he thinks he won. Like, I was so confused by that. Guardian, what are your thoughts on that? How weird was that fight?
Well, from the first round for me was definitely the strangest, you know, definitely, because Saldana dropped him once, like MMA and Bayer said. He didn't go for the finish, and I was like, what the hell? Like, he's down on the ground. You could literally finish him there, right there, but no, run off and do a bit of taunting. So for me, I believe that he doesn't deserve the fucking win, because he was taunting, he wasn't going for the finish at all, and he was making his coaches mad, and he just wasn't fighting that fight, and he deserves to get a draw because he wasn't committed to get that finish, and he could have got it on multiple occasions, but never went for it.
Yeah, it was definitely weird. AJ, what do you think about that fight? Do you think he could have gotten the finish? What do you think?
Yeah, I do think he could have got the finish, but like, obviously the taunting and everything, I don't agree with the taunting. And I know we have the legendary picture of Nate Diaz pointing at Leon Edwards and everything, and that's where that comes from. But I just don't agree with taunting in fights. I think you're there to finish the fight, so why are you doing that? Just finish the fight, get it over and done with, be respectful to your opponent. But that's my opinion on it anyway.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. That was a very strange fight. I agree with the scorecards, the majority draw. I think it makes sense. I kind of want to switch over topics now that we're kind of going deep into the card now. Kind of got that done and over with. Kind of want to break down the bantamweight picture now that we had a big fight there. We got Cheeto, who got the win a couple weeks ago against Cruz. And then we got the two big fights on the Abu Dhabi card. How do you guys think matchmaking works? Who should be fighting who and when? Like, what do you think about the title fight? What do you think about, O'Malley versus Piotr, Cheeto, all that stuff? How would you matchmake things, just in general? Guardian, I'll let you start.
Well, with Merab winning, for me, it's left it a tiny bit confusing, because if Jose Aldo won, for me, I think it's easily you could give him the winner of Aljo and DJ in Abu Dhabi 280. I thought that was a pretty clear choice if Jose Aldo won, but obviously Merab Dvalishvili got the win. Don't want to discredit him one bit. I am a little bit confused though, because he did say he wanted to move to flyweight. I don't know if that was rumours or if that's confirmed or not, but what's next for him? Maybe a Cheeto matchup wouldn't be that bad, but I want to see. It's confusing also because Piotr Yan out of nowhere fighting Sean O'Malley, who I believe is number 13, which is very random. Although I love the fight and it'll be without a doubt entertaining, but it doesn't make sense. Obviously it'd be fun, but it just doesn't really make sense, and it just leaves the division kind of in a messy situation with not really too many matchups really making sense, and they're just gonna have to make the fights just as they go. And giving Dominic Cruz and Jose Aldo up and comers really kind of ruin their little, return, their little rise back up to the title, trying to get back to the championship status. But that's my thoughts really on it.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely still a fight that can be made between those two, although I do want to see Cruz retire, although kind of some rumors that he may be retiring. AJ, what do you think about the bantamweight picture? How would you match things up with how they are right now?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, and Guardians just said, I think Merab, if he was to stay in bantamweight division, I think Cheeto probably would be the fight to make. And then Sterling versus Dillashaw, I think Aljo's winning that, personally anyway. So then I think that leaves, if Yan beats Sean, which I think he probably will, maybe a rematch against Sterling. I'm not too sure. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I guess we'll see. It's quite a confusing division at the minute, especially with Merab just winning, like Guardian said.
All right. Well, yeah, I agree with that, definitely, for sure. The way I would match things up personally, you got Merab. He's right there at the top. He should be fighting a top 5 guy, but he did say, he is very close training partners and just good friends in general with the champion, Aljamain Sterling. So if Aljamain wins, then I don't think that even makes sense to happen. And then you got Cheeto. I think Cheeto should get the title shot as currently constructed if Aljamain wins. It all depends on what happens with that fight and with Piotr versus Sean O'Malley. There's a lot of different moving parts here. This division is wide open. I think it is probably the best division in the UFC right now. Renaissance, what do you think about the matchmaking? How would you set things up for bantamweight right now?
Man, I think this is a rare situation where the business standpoint actually lines up with what should happen. You got the title fight for the bantamweight title on the same night as Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley, and I believe this fight was made because if Sean O'Malley wins, he should get the title shot, and that's what I think too. It is pretty unlikely that Sean O'Malley will win. Fuck it, Sean O'Malley will not win, but still, if he wins, I think Sean O'Malley will get the title shot. But if he doesn't, I think Cheeto should get the title shot. Cheeto's been on a good winning streak. He's been on a roll. He has actually pretty good chances for actually winning the title, and that's why I like the bantamweight division. Anybody can be the champion, just like Dominic Cruz said. Anybody can be in the top 10 can be the champion, right? And I think it all depends on the winner of Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley.
Yeah, I agree with that. And touching on what you said real quick, business-wise, I think the rematch is right there. Sugar versus Cheeto too. I think it makes sense. What do you think about that unbiased? Would you try and set that up soon? Maybe a number 1 contender fight? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, to be honest, Marab, to me, made the division a lot more confusing, because what I was going to do was Marab versus Cheeto first,
Yep.
but we don't know if Marab's moving to 125, and then again, I don't even know if it's worth it to book that, because if Marab wins and Aljo's still the champion, like he said, he won't fight Aljamain Sterling.
Yeah.
So maybe Vera waits. Maybe he does fight the winner of Piotr Yan and Piotr Yan and
Sugar Sean.
Sean O'Malley. Sorry, I blanked there. But yeah, the whole division is just kind of weird right now. Like, we've got the number 1 ranked against number 13. We got number 4 against number 10. We got the title fight, which should be a really good fight. TJ Dillashaw versus Aljamain Sterling. But yeah, it's kind of hard to decide what to do with the division right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting moving parts with this division. We'll stay tuned and see what happens in October. Now, just shifting gears once again, we are going to kind of touch upon the Luke Rockhold situation. He obviously had a very savage retirement. And we kind of just made a quick little top 5, all of us, if we can just go through from 5 up to 1. Best retirements, quote unquote. This can be filtered with, sadness, meaningfulness, however you want to rank best retirements. Renaissance, if you want to start, feel free.
Yeah, so UFC has a lot of pretty good sad retirements, bad retirements, and I have a whole list. So for the 5th spot, I gotta go with Rumble Johnson. Man, Rumble Johnson, his whole journey from actually being a low-weight and going to a light heavyweight and actually only having losses to Daniel Cormier, right? And just most saddest thing about his retirement is when he retired, he tried to call his coaches Henry Hooft on the octagon, but the coaches never came because he lost, and that's why I think this is the saddest way to retire. And number 4, I'm going to Daniel Cormier. Pretty self-explanatory. He got Daniel Cormier lost his last 2 fights to Stipe Miocic, one of the best trilogies we have ever witnessed in the sport. We got then on number third I got Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Literally, she has been a pioneer for women's mixed martial arts. Not the strawweight division, just the mixed martial. She has been a kickboxing champion. She's been a UFC champion. She's one of the greatest to ever do it. And just to see her go out like that, right? A spinning backwards KO, just to see her go like that, it's pretty sad. And I was really rooting for her. Number 2, I gotta go with Khabib Nurmagomedov, man. The impact he had on the sport was different. It was different because he came in a flash and he bent. Amazing fighter, could have done a lot more in the sport, but really sad retirement. And the first, I got maybe you can call it recency bias, but I'm gonna go with Luke Rockhold. For 3 years, everybody doubted him. For 3 years, and now he fucking beats Paulo Costa. Doesn't beat him, but beats him in my heart and retires. There's never been a better retirement than that. That's my take.
Yeah, that was a great list for sure. I agree with a lot of those picks. I'll touch on mine a little bit. Guardian, who's your top 5 saddest retirements?
Well, I'm just going to quickly go through these. Number 5, I've got Daniel Cormier. Obviously, he's a legend throughout light heavyweight and heavyweight. Obviously having the epic trilogy of Stipe Miocic and the first and second fight of John Jones, if you want to call that second fight a real fight with the all steroid shit and all that. But I don't know. I don't want to get into that too much. But for number 4, I've got Khabib. Especially the time he retired, with his father dying around that time, it was very difficult for him, and it was quite for me, it was quite emotional because he just went through so much, and just to see him go out there and get the win over Justin Gaethje, it was just truly inspirational. And he's like Renaissance said, he's done a lot for the sport. He's extremely humble, and I think he's going to forever go down as one of the best of all time. One of the best, not the best, but obviously. Number 3, I've got Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Exactly like Renaissance said, she's for me the female GOAT of not just UFC, MMA as a whole. She was very good, and especially in her prime, she grew on me. Obviously with the trash talk and all that, and the Rose fights, and it was just to see her go out with that spinning back fist KO to Zhang Wei Li. It was very sad to see. And number 2, I've got Luke Rockhold, and literally exactly what Renaissance said. All he's been through, all the memes, just taking. People have just been memeing him throughout most of his career, especially as of late. All the knockouts, all the corny lines at his press conferences, believe the chief, all that shit. But yeah, it was very sad to see him go, especially after a bit of a war against Paulo Costa. That's my number 2, but number 1 is probably, for me, very, very, very close. Cowboy Cerrone. Like, he's just been a legend throughout the UFC. He's been taking hard fights non-stop. In his last fight against Jim Miller, I was really, really rooting for him. I was very sad when he lost. Personally, I predicted him to win that fight, but Cowboy's done so much for the sport, and just to see him go out like that, and obviously I saw it coming because everyone was guessing that he was going to retire soon, but that's my number 1.
All right, yeah, AJ, what are your thoughts on your top 5 for best or saddest retirements?
Yeah, so number 5, I have a name that's not even been mentioned yet, and it's actually shocked me quite a bit. I have Paul Felder. I found that a very sad retirement for me. Anyway, I was a Paul Felder fan. Number 4, I have Khabib. Sad way to go out. He made he completely changed the lightweight division. There was no champion anymore. That's where Charles Oliveira comes in now, obviously. And obviously, it wasn't the reason that he didn't think he could fight anymore. It was he didn't want to fight without having his dad in his corner, which, you've got to respect if he wants to go out like that. Number 3, I have DC. He retired at the top because he said himself he didn't see a title in his future and he was only interested in fighting titles. And, you've got to respect it. So, and that was a sad retirement, so I have him number 3. Number 2, I have Rockhold. Just the way he come back from being clowned by everyone. He come back and shown that he still has it. But, he was happy to call it a day. So, got to respect it again. And number 1, I have Yannan because, I don't have her as the actual GOAT, but, she made women's MMA 10 times bigger than it was. She made it massive in Poland, everywhere, and you've got to respect her because she made women's MMA what it is today.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely a good list. A lot of good reasoning there. Unbiased, what is your top 5 saddest retirements?
So to start off, I actually have an honorable mention because, like AJ said, Paul Felder deserves to be at least mentioned on this list. He's not in my top 5, but I wanted to mention him. He was a good fighter. I don't know anyone who hated the guy. Everyone loved him, and his retirement was just really, really sad. Going into the actual list, number 5, I have DC. He retired on the mic with Joe Rogan after his second loss to Stipe Miocic, and it was sad to see him go out on a 2-fight losing streak just because of how good of a fighter he was. He's a top 10 fighter of all time. Some may even argue a top 5 fighter of all time. He was a class act. Not the biggest fan of his commentary, I'll admit, but he was a class act, so good for him. Number 4, I have Luke Rockhold. I mean, just the way that he went out. Like, it was so happy yet so sad. He had an amazing fight. It was a weird fight, but it was an amazing fight. And he was smearing blood on Paulo Costa's face. He put on a show for the fans. He became pretty much a fan favorite in one fight after being memed for years, being called glass jaw. He was able to prove the narrative wrong. It's not his jaw that's glass, it was his defense. And he was able to take some good shots from Paulo Costa. Just sad to see him go out. Number 3, I have Khabib. He retired for his mom. His mom didn't want him to keep fighting anymore. And he retired after the Justin Gaethje fight, which was the fight after his dad died. The fact that he was still able to go out, get the win over Gaethje with the first fight without his dad in his corner is truly amazing. The way he was crying in the middle of the octagon, you have to respect him for it. He's a true legend of MMA. He's a top 10 fighter of all time. You can't deny it. Number 2, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She's one of the greatest women's fighters of all time. In my opinion, she's a top 5 fighter of all time in WMMA, at least. The way that she went out off of a KO after she was already on, I believe, a 2-year layoff, and it was a spinning back fist KO. That's going to be on the highlight reels for a long time. But either way, it was just so sad to see her go. She's a pioneer of the sport. She pretty much brought the sport to Poland. Good for her. I wish her well in retirement. And at number 1, I'm surprised this was so low on people's list, but I actually have Anthony Johnson. Just the way that he called his coaches into the octagon, and they didn't even come in for him. He couldn't find his coaches. He had no clue where they were. They just left him after a loss. That's just so heartbreaking to me. If you're a coach and your fighter loses and he's retiring, you got to be there to comfort him. You got to be there with him. I mean, he pretty much gave you a career. He fought for you. You just had to coach him. It was just so sad to me to see Anthony Johnson retire without his coaches being there for him.
Yeah, for sure. So, absolutely great list there. I'll just go into mine. Start from the bottom up. Number 5, I got Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Obviously, everybody has had her on their lists, respectfully. I got her at number 5 just because, she's a pioneer of the sport, like everybody's touched upon. Very sad way to go out. She's done a lot for the strawweight division and women's MMA as a whole. Just sad to see her go out the way she did. Number 4, I got Daniel Cormier, Mr. Double Champ himself. Top 10 all time, in my opinion. I don't think top 5, but that's here nor there. The trilogy against Stipe was definitely something special. He went out like a fighter's fighter, pro's pro, and whatnot. Very sad retirement with Joe Rogan on the mic, as aforementioned. Number 3, I got Cowboy Cerrone. Some of the most legendary fights put on by him, a lot of legendary moments, and nothing was different about his retirement. The way he went out, threw down the cowboy hat, put his gloves in there, and he just called it a day. He said he's moving on to Hollywood. That just happened recently. We'll see what's next with him. Wish him the best. Now, going into the top 2 is where it gets interesting. I base this off of impact and meaningfulness as it goes higher and higher. Now, this might be a little controversial to have it at 2, but regardless, this is my list. Number 2, I got Khabib Nurmagomedov. He went out on his own terms, very emotional retirement, going right into the middle of the octagon, just bawling his eyes out. He did it for his dad. He did it all. Very meaningful retirement, and he's forever a legend of the sport. Definitely a top 10, top 5 all time, whatever you want to argue it as. Very sad. And last spot, number 1, as you can probably tell, I'm going to go off recency bias here. None other than Luke Rockhold, forever undisputed. The way he went out was just something special. Like everybody else has said before, he went out on his own terms. The pre-fight, post-fight build-up, the whole fight itself, he just didn't give any fucks about what anybody said about him. He attacked the UFC, going for healthcare, universal healthcare for all fighters, bigger bonuses. He was just advocating for everybody. If they ever started a fighters union, I would want him to be the president, just because he knows how it should be. He's been through a lot over the last few years, getting knocked out multiple times. There's been stuff outside the octagon, as I said before. And then the fight just itself was just savage. He just screamed, "Fuck you," and then clipped him. Everybody was going crazy. He was throwing nice back kicks, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it was a special retirement, and even though it just happened, it's gonna stay at the top for me for quite a while until something else changes. Now that's my top 5. I think we're good here. I think this is episode 1 wrapped up, signed, sealed, delivered. FightFive Pod to the moon. We got episode 2 coming out very soon. We're going to be previewing UFC Paris and maybe touch upon Khamzat vs. Diaz, UFC 279. That should be a very fun pay-per-view. Anybody got final thoughts? Or?
Well, I just want to say, I want to go quickly go back to the Bantamweight picture. Just quickly. I am annoyed, though, how Marab and Aldo are friends. Now, there's nothing wrong with being friends in general. There's nothing wrong with it. But the thing that annoys me, especially in combat sports, is how, especially if Merab and Aldo are so close together in the rankings, and Merab is arguably one fight away from that title shot, it kind of ruins the division a bit. It kind of ruins it for me, because it then leads to matchups that don't make sense and all that. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, it messes up the flow for sure. Definitely makes things a little confusing if they both win their next fights or whatever. But yeah, anybody got like final thoughts? Want to say a little farewell to the crowd here for FightFive Pod, or are we all set?
Yeah, so I have the same thing that UFC Guardian said, man. Like, fucking Merab, man. Like, Aljamain Sterling really thinks he can be a champion at featherweight just so he could give a chance to Merab. Bro, I think that is pretty highly unlikely, and I don't know what the fuck is gonna happen, because a lot of times I've seen people from the same gym fight, like Robbie Lawler, fucking Tyron Woodley. Like, a relationship gets fucking ruined, but this is like fucking stupid. Just fight or like vacate, so stupid, man.
Defender vacate championship. Yeah. Tony Ferguson said it best. Aja, what are your thoughts here? What are your thoughts on this episode 1?
Yeah, so like Renaissance just said, I think it is holding up the division if they're going to do that.
Yeah,
but if they want to fight, they could be respectful. We've seen it happen with training partners before. People who are close together. We've seen it happen with Usman and Burns. Part of the same training, and they was fine. They was together. So it shows respect can be there, and yeah, I think it's been a pretty successful first episode.
Yeah, I'm biased. You want to give a quick shout before we head off?
Yeah, man. I think everyone else put the title picture conversation to sleep. They said it really well. There's nothing else for me to say. But as for the episode, I just want to thank everyone who's tuning in, who's made it this far. If you guys are watching, I think it was a successful first episode. I had a lot of fun making it. I hope all you guys had fun making it as well. And I just want to say thanks to everyone who watched it.
Yeah, perfect way to send it off. Thank you all for listening to this point, just like Unbiased said, and we will see you soon. Episode 2, we are coming very hot. We're coming in hot like a nade, boy. How y'all doing? Alright.
Let's go, bro. Let's go.
That being said, episode 2 is on the way. Farewell.